Okay, guys, welcome back to my channel, Soldier of Sekhmet. And this is basically just a recording of me getting ready today, Wednesday, for a reading that I posted. It's a pick a card reading about someone's explanation to you for their behavior. I'll link it so you guys can go check that out if you want to, but it's not really relevant to what I want to say right now. I just wanted to get in the habit of posting more content and being more free in my creative energy. So that's what we're doing. But really, what I wanted to talk about right now was this new thing that I'm about to do. As some of you guys know, I recently moved across the country like maybe 2 months ago from California. I used to live in the desert and it really felt like a desert, like not just physically, but also spiritually. Like I felt really alone for a lot of that time, which I think was fine because I lived like a 7 minute walk away from this cemetery that I used to like go to and convene with the dead at. And that might sound like really weird to some of you guys, and maybe it is. But for me, it was cool because I felt like I got some ancestral unlocking done, just like for lack of better words. Like I was raised Baptist Christian primarily by my mother. My father is Jehovah's Witness. Um, but I felt like even, with the Christian formatting, there is still something more. Like something within me was like, there's more to learn. And I think that had to do with the fact that my ancestors, aren't like Christian. Like a lot of them aren't Christian. So there was something there that I felt like I needed to continue to explore. And when I was in the desert, I got a lot of time outside and I felt like I was connecting with nature, and that to me is like more like the Native American way. And I know through word of mouth that I have Native American ancestry on both sides of my family. So, I feel like I got the opportunity then to like, be with people that I wouldn't, or with a culture even that I wouldn't really have as clear of access to where I live now, which is Georgia. And here in Georgia, I'm going back to my roots a bit. So last Sunday, Mother's Day service, I went to a cathedral. It's an Anglican church with Catholic roots, and I found a lot of value. Actually, I know a lot of people like have negative things to say about Catholics, but I actually think that I'm gonna keep going. Because I like that they kneeled. I like that they had handouts that had like really clear and kind of instructions on how to worship. Because I feel like a lot of people in life are afraid to ask for help when it comes to worship. Like they're afraid to be instructed. Like they don't want to be told what to do and what format to connect with God in. And I used to be one of those people, right? Like on one phase of my life, I was like, I don't feel like I want to do it this way. And I didn't always do it in the way that I didn't want to do it. And that's why I think I especially am justified and righteous in going and being a part of a Catholic environment now, because like I'm doing it because I want to do it. I'm doing it because I want to have discipline and I want to have structure and I want to do the same thing every Sunday. And that really is just coming from a personal place of desire and my own connection and my own personal relationship with God, where I feel like it's what He wants me to do right now. And so I'm going to give myself this foundation. I'm going to give myself this opportunity to be more disciplined because I feel like it'll pay off. And, as a tarot reader, like I'm very confident in my ability to discern. I know that I could lead myself through my life, right? But I also think that I'm finding now an increased value in also being a good listener and allowing other people to use their platforms to speak to me. Like, I can't be the only person on earth who has the connection that I can respect. And so I think when it comes to like finding a church and like finding a place of worship or any spiritual leader that you can trust, like, it's really just about understanding that that person is in some way living some fracture of human consciousness that can relate to you. Like, there's a reason, or there needs to be a reason why you listen to a person and find resonance with them. And so when I went to this church, I found resonance with the speaker, and it made me feel like there's something about the way that he communicates that I can find like real true value in, that I'm willing to kind of submit to. And so that's the reason primarily why I think I'm going to keep going to that church specifically, is that from what I've heard so far, and I've only been just that one time, but sometimes like you don't have to keep doing something to know that it works. So I just went that one time, but from what I've experienced, I liked it and I want to keep going and I want to keep exploring the Catholic faith and Anglican faith. And I want to kind of make myself more humble in like not only my relationship to Christ, but then also even my leadership position, right? Like I can't be so attached to myself as a leader and as an independent spiritual being that I'm not willing to learn from anyone else. And that's the value of that for me. So I've even reached out to this guy, and I'm calling him this guy not because he's not an important person. He's the Reverend, um, or the Reverend. Yeah. Um, I reached out to him and I was like, hey, like, are there any like Bible study classes available for me because I lead my own people and I want to be the best leader that I can be for those people. And he was like, yeah, and he sent me a bunch of like resources and I'm really excited about that because I want to be amongst other people who are like me and who like see the desire in studying Christ and studying like what he would want me to be, right? Cuz like one of my things is like when I was reading the book of Luke, like maybe a couple months back, what really stuck out to me for the first time of like revisiting it after like a while, I don't even know how long, was that Christ in his day led like 5,000 people. Like he was Christ as a leader of only 5,000 people. And so I have this platform on TikTok where I lead almost 10 times that many people. And so it feels really important to me if I seek to maintain my leadership platform and I seek to be genuine and authentic to my religious beliefs and values that I be a leader in the way that he would want me to be so that I can kind of continue Christ's legacy in the current modern era, right? That's my goal. Like that's how I feel like I can guarantee that I'm aligned and I'm going to end up positioned in life the way that I want to. So I'm going to go to these Bible study groups. I don't know which one yet. I haven't really picked. There's a couple of them. But I'm going to go to these groups and my hope is that in the study I will absorb information that I'll then like kind of come back and bring to you guys in some way, shape, or form. So that maybe like if you guys are like, well, I don't have any churches in my area that make me feel good, and like I don't feel like I'm really like included in the service, or I don't feel like I'm really probably being represented, I will bring you guys literally the bare bones information. Like I will come back and teach you guys what I've learned that I feel like had value, in this more like universal senses, and that's what I feel like sometimes the Christian community can kind of like fall short in. Not that it should change, because I feel like Christianity is for Christians. But if I could do anything, it's try to make holy messages universal, and I feel like that's kind of part of my purpose as this person who's like an amalgamation of all different kinds of like cultural backgrounds and has had the chance to study so many different like spiritual beliefs and philosophies. So I'm meant to kind of be like absorbing all of these things and then like basically extracting the most powerful, most impactful information to kind of reiterate for the people who trust me as their leader. And I want to like kind of like go back to my roots here a little bit. One of the books and movies that most inspired me to be who I am today and how I am today is The Life of Pi. And in that movie, it's this Indian, Southeast Asian kid, and he's super freaking smart. And he ends up like claiming a whole bunch of different religions, and everyone's like, you can't be all these different religions. And he's like, why not? So, like, that really inspired me as a kid because it allowed me, who, as a person who came from this more like, I don't want to say narrow minded background, but like just very much Christian in the way, if you're not a Christian, you're going to hell kind of a thing. It allowed me to like have the opportunity to be like, wow, there's other stuff out here and that stuff works for those people. And there's a validity to that stuff for those people. And I honestly feel like everyone should be allowed to believe what they want to believe. Like even in my love for Christ, I feel like everyone should be allowed to believe what they want to believe because from my perspective, it's hard for me to imagine a world without Christ because I live in a country where Christianity is like the national religion, and I descend from people who were kind of indoctrinated with Christianity, and so it's just kind of like the norm to see everything through this like Christ-centric perspective. But as someone who has made an attempt to be more broad in mind, I actually really love and appreciate the fact that people from all over the world are seeing and interpreting God in their own ways and based on their own cultures. Like, I find that so inspiring. And when I look to these cultures, I also study those. Like, I'm not just studying the Bible, I'm also studying like Hinduism, and I'm studying Egyptian mythology and Greek mythology and all of these other things, because there is value and truth to, I feel like, every single way that a human could interpret life. Because we are not just individual people, we're also just like pieces of a collective consciousness. I feel like that's so important to remember, is that if, even as a Christian, like, you have to believe in the fact that God has created other like non-Christian people, like he created them, and then those people are also equally valuable for their perspectives. And if we're not willing to learn from people who aren't like us, then we're not really loving our neighbors, are we? And so that's why I feel like, it's really important to keep your head on straight when it comes to these like religious beliefs and philosophies, and not become too dogmatic, because I feel like if you become too dogmatic and too rigid and too extremist, you're really like closing yourself off from being enriched by everything else that is out there to be learned and absorbed and perceived. And that's why I value my father's Jehovah's Witness background so much, is that, like, one of the things that he taught me from an early age is just to be aware of what is fact, right? Like, I can come from a Christian background and really believe in the value of Christianity and all of its morals and ethics and values. But if I can't even perceive someone else's perspective, I'm living in a limited world, and I don't really want to have unnecessary or unrealistic or invisible limitations on my perception of the world and everything that's happening around me, just because I'm not aware of what else exists. Like, there are a lot of people who are even afraid to like Google something or learn something because it's not the thing that they want to be seen as having an interest in. And I feel like that's like such a shame, because there's just so many other things worth knowing about than the things that are like natural or innate to you. Like, we are, like, as humans, such a diverse population. Like, I even have interest in shit like or stuff like Atlantis, like I want to know about what's happening underneath the water. Like, even that, like, scientifically speaking, I'm interested in things that are happening in outer space. Like, I even offer birth chart readings. I'm interpreting the stars on a regular basis. Like, I'm just not a person who feels like everything that I see is everything that is. And I really feel bad for people who are like stuck in that way of being, where they just can't perceive anything beyond what's tangible or what's readily accessible as being something worth investing time and effort and energy into having knowledge of. But I think that's also the role that I'm meant to play in a lot of these people's lives when I enter these more like conservative spaces, is to just be a person who represents something a little bit different than what they know. And I think in that way, I kind of like butter them up. Not that I'm like trying to like manipulate or maneuver anybody else, but I do feel like God will like frequently and often and reliably use me to open up other people's eyes about how a person could exist in the world, especially as being like a spiritual leader. Because I think most people think of spiritual leaders, in North America, as like being priests or like at the most liberal like motivational speakers. But for me, like, as someone who has like been able to create somewhat of a living off of just reading cards and the stars, like, most people have never really met someone like me. And so when I come into spaces, especially these more like religious spaces where there are like rules and like expectations on how someone should perceive the world, or limits on how far away from the biblical text that you can really interpret, I'm the person who's like, hey, but this is, how I've done it, and this is the success that I found in it. And even if they don't agree with me, I often find that I'm respected for what, is proved by what my capabilities can be. And I feel like when people like allow themselves to be open-minded about me and what I've done and how I've helped people, they end up like kind of healing themselves and allowing themselves to also interpret life through a little bit of a different lens. And I think that I've even shared, like, at the last church that I went to, there was the first lady, and I really kind of connected with her, even though we were kind of different. A lot of ways we were actually kind of the same. And I think as I continued to go to Bible study and like sit with the women in that church, I think they found an appreciation for the differences that were between us. Is like, I wasn't maybe the most domestically trained woman, but I also was the person in Bible study who asked a lot of the deeper questions that a lot of the women didn't really ask, or had been out of the practice of even thinking about, because I wasn't someone who was as familiar and ingrained in the church as they were. So I kind of come in as the person who asked the questions that maybe are easy to answer, but still require thought and even refresh the thought processes of the people who are in the more common and regular groups. So a lot of times the questions that I have, like really kind of point me out as the person who isn't the most practiced Christian, but I don't really mind that because I think even asking those questions as someone who appears as an outsider allows people to see the difference between what, they think is normal and common and universal, and it just like gives them perspective. Like not everyone thinks or knows the things that you think and know. And maybe there's even more of a value in trying to reach out to those people, not only because you want to give them your perspective, but also because you want to hear theirs. Like, how have you made it so far and been so successful if you don't even see God the way that I do? And what value can I find in your perspective that I don't even understand that I should find value in, because I've never even seen it as something that could lead me to success? So that's what I like about being me, is like I'm really not normal, and I feel like even in not being normal, I'm still successful, and I show other people that they can be that way, or that there's just a value in being that way. So, yeah, I think I'm like kind of out of words to say about that. Um, I think in this point of the video, I am just channeling messages, and maybe right now I can talk about like what that channeling process is for me. So basically, all throughout the day, all the time, my mind is extremely active, and I'm always like referencing things. I'm always comparing things. I have a Virgo moon, so Virgo is one of those signs that's extremely analytical and detail oriented. So I kind of pay attention to everything, notice everything, and also remember everything. It's probably one of the reasons why I was really good in school, and considered pretty scholarly, is because I have like almost a photographic memory. So like I can be at Walmart and see the price of something and then walk away from it and then like remember the price of that thing, just because I saw it that one time. When I was in school, I used to write notes, and then during the test, I could literally like flip through the pages of my notes like in my head. I was a spelling bee champion because if I see a word once, I can literally envision that word in my mind and just like kind of like look up in my head and just read out the letters that I see. So, yeah, I just have that kind of a brain. So when it's super active, if I allow myself to be still and set the intention that I'm going to receive a specific message, I can literally hear that message, and I can feel myself being kind of guided to the understanding or the words or the phrasing that's necessary in order to lend that understanding to other people. And that's a lot of how I do this work, spiritually. It's just me understanding what I'm receiving and then being able to recite that back in human language. Because sometimes the understanding, the knowing is not something that like really comes in phrasing. It's more of like this feeling of complete understanding that just suddenly kind of comes upon me. um and like that might sound really weird if you're not someone who recognizes yourself as having that level of ability, but that's another thing that I kind of want to talk about. Like, I feel like people underestimate their own divinity, and that's one of the major barriers that I feel like most people have towards just being something more in life, is that they don't think that they actually could be anything more. And then because they don't think that, they don't ever take the actions of being something more. So, if there's one thing that you get from this video, just like watching me in the back of my head, I would say, understand that you're more. Understand that you're like literally a child of God. And he didn't just give you a piece of consciousness for no reason. Like, have you guys ever seen the movie Lucy, when she literally like does some drugs and then she starts unlocking pieces of her brain that like no other human ever has? I'm not saying do drugs, but I am saying open your mind up to the idea that you could access more of yourself through maybe even the submission to some kind of experience that would like surrender you more forcefully. And like in that movie, she's really using drugs, but maybe this is like the kind of situation where you're going to a church, and then you start to use those rituals that are a part of that church, like you're reciting the phrases, you're maybe meditating more in depth. Like those are the kind of things that I feel like have helped me in life. Is when I can't see the next step for myself, it's usually a time for me to receive mentorship. So I don't really go to any other tarot readers, really, but there are a couple of motivational speakers that I really enjoy. listening to their content, and I will go to a church and listen to someone who's been like, formally educated on the Bible to kind of give me their interpretation of the text at hand based off of, their intuitive understanding of what might be relevant for their collective at that time. Because it's really very similar, like, a priest and then like a kind of like a Torah reader. I mean, like, you're not necessarily like a Torah reader maybe wouldn't reference the Bible as frequently, but it's like you get the message that you feel is important and you bring that to the people who trust you, understanding that they trust you and come to you because you're the person for them, that they've already decided in their mind that you have something of value to give to them. And you can even apply that to like other things like musicians, like, have you ever like experienced something where like your favorite artist dropped an album that was like exactly what you needed to hear at that time? Like, I know a lot of times, like, there were times when like rappers even, or like singers, like, they dropped an album and it was like exactly what I was experiencing, or like exactly what I needed to kind of work through healing something emotionally within me. Because sometimes the emotions that we're working through, that we need help working through, aren't the kind of emotions that you maybe would hear about being spoken about in like a religious place, because of the conservative nature of like that being formal leadership, like public religious leadership. Like, sometimes you need to go to that darker communion. So it could be that like sometimes you need to be opened up via rage or via violence. Like, maybe you're going to like the boxing gym to have that communion, and you're like meeting up with other angry people to fight, and there's a value to that as well. Like, and I would encourage everyone here to kind of like figure out what it is about them that they need to find communally expressed, and then put themselves in that arena to communally express, and like believe in the transaction of that energy, right? Like, believe in the divine matchups that can occur when you are willing and open to receive those divine matchups, because you just really never know. You just really never know. Even the same thing with like fucking Tinder, like and this is a funny like example maybe, but like there were even times when like I got on Tinder, and like at the exact time that I got on Tinder, like I matched with someone who I had like a soulmate connection with, and then obviously the sex was good. And then like, I've started significant little relationships off of Tinder. Like, none of them like resulted in marriage or anything, but they were all like important to me developing the XP that I needed to be who I am today. And so you never really know what could be out there. And that's why I see God in like literally everything, like even in my Tinder matches, like dead ass. Because I'm just that kind of a spiritualist where I feel like everything, like nothing could ever be non secular, because everything is of God's creation. So like everything involves God. Like, He has a hand in quite literally everything. So yeah, maybe next time you're on Tinder, like ask God to bless your matches so that you can meet somebody who will like really take you to Pound Town or something like that. I don't know. Like, that's the thing. You don't have to have any relationship with God that feels uncomfortable or non-personal. Like, I feel like God is there to support you. Like, the universe is there to support you. Why would it ever bring you into existence just to like put you down? And I feel like if you have that perception of God as like somebody who like isn't your best friend, that's something that you probably want to work on healing, because you should be perceiving God as somebody who's like working like arm in arm with you to get you to where you want to be, because that's how I see him. And that way, whenever I experience like delays, or like I fall out with somebody important to me, I can like go to God and be like, hey, like, be my wingman here, like, help me out. And I find that He usually does. Like, I find that God really wants me to connect with people because I have the perspective that I do. And I know that He wants me to share it, because I think that God really is proud of me. I think God is proud of how far I've come and how much I've grown, and how much faith I have in Him. And I think that He knows that I'll share that faith with other people who are willing to receive it. So yeah, I look forward to like meeting these people that God matches me up with, because there's always evidence of the fact that He's there in those relationships, in the ways that I feel like I'm being benefited, and in the ways that those people I assume feel like they're benefited due to their like willingness to continue to like engage. Um and yeah, like there's even like that like trial by fire energy, where I feel like there have been people who have hurt me that I feel like God even wanted to hurt me. And there's a value in that. Like, not every experience that is godly is going to be one that you enjoy. Like I mentioned that I used to live in the desert. Like that wasn't exactly a fun time. Like I was by myself and I was surrounded by people who felt foreign to me, and a lot of the times those people were like initiated and activated into opposing me. And I was telling this person the other day, like, my perception of the fact that God and the devil kind of work hand in hand, that the devil actually is the platform for God's promotion and exaltation. That's the exact phrasing I used. And I said that, and I gave the example of like when someone is making fun of you in class, and then you tell a funny joke or like a funny comeback, and then everybody laughs at your joke, and then now they're remembering you not as the person who was bullied, but the person who has a funny comeback. Like the person who has charisma, the person who knows how to overcome an initial setback. So that is the value that I feel like we're encouraged to look into. It's like not just the fact that like, hey, somebody was mean to me, but also I know exactly how to respond to this energy. Like I'm capable of handling the devil because I have an alliance with God. And because God is going to always dominate over evil forces in the world. I already have a predisposition that sets me up for success here in the material world because I know how to handle what exists here in the material world or predominates this material world. Because Earth is not like necessarily God's playground. Like he created it, but then he kind of, I don't want to say lost it, but relinquished control over what happened here. Like the fallen angel. Where did the angel fall to? He fell to Earth. Like Lucifer came here and then he started to do his thing here. So like God is allowing all these things to happen. And so when I exist here in the material realm, I already anticipate that the devil is like lurking. And I think it's important to do that. That way you're not caught off guard by his presence. Like you can't be walking around here as a child of Christ or of any spiritual belief or philosophy and think that it's going to just come easy or that there won't be challenge or opposition. And that's the beauty of having that faith and proving that faith. Like you wouldn't even have an opportunity to prove your faith if there was nothing here to oppose you. So, yeah, I think of the earthly realm as like kind of the devil's playground. And then I also think of the fact that, Christ has already kind of covered all of us. As long as we're willing to like acknowledge him as being our savior, we kind of have a little bit of like free reign here. Like and this is also maybe like a little bit more of a unique belief, but I feel empowered by it. I feel empowered by the idea that as a follower of Christ, I'm free to make the choices that are best for me. I think there's like a literal scripture where it's like people are asking Jesus like these questions. I think it's in Luke as well. And they're like, one of Jesus' responses to the questions is like, pay to Caesar what you owe Caesar. Um, like they have to pay this like fine or like this tax. And then when I think of that as like not just a financial like currency, I think of that also as like what you might do to like quote unquote like fit in, or what you might do to find societal acceptance, because there is a truth to the fact that for as long as we are material beings, we'll have to do the things that material beings do in order to be material beings. Like we have to eat every day, which means we have to go to work, which means we have to like make our boss happy. It's that kind of a thing. So that's like what I interpret from like this pay to Caesar what you owe Caesar kind of response, is that there are certain things like, there are certain things that we might have to do that sacrifice on our relationship to Christ just because we don't live in heaven. Like we're not already there. Um, and so that's why it's beautiful to me that Christ exists, because we can think of ourselves as already being forgiven for those things. We can think of ourselves as being free to do what's necessary.